Thank you. All right, thanks, David. Well, my name is Diane Lee, and my demo is about enhancing watercolor. Now, I want you to know that I absolutely am a true watercolor lover. I don't really usually enhance my watercolors, but I just come across an idea of maybe to make them have a little more glow. And I find that especially florals, for me, it seems to give them a little more depth, or just a little more warmth. It's kind of depends on your visualization of it. This piece that's on the screen right now is an iris, and I don't know how clearly you're going to be able to see it, but I've enhanced the top with some acrylic ink and this side with acrylic ink. And I'm going to enhance this other side, and I'll show you how I do that. I also want to just point out that these pictures that I have on the wall up here have all been enhanced just a little bit, just a touch. They're watercolors, pure and simple, but I've, for instance, this one, I enhanced it with some deep olive green in between the fence posts here, or the dock posts, and then a little bit of more vivid Prussian blue on the roof, and one of the distant roofs also. But it just, for me, it just made it stand out a little more. So it can be done, but it sure doesn't have to be done. And I'm not trying to sell anybody on not watercolor inks, but acrylic inks. By the way, we had one gal do watercolor inks by Doc Martin. That was this morning. And so there are a lot of different kinds of inks. Now, one thing about acrylic ink is that once it dries, it's permanent. But when it's wet and you're using it and fanning it out with your brush, it works very much like watercolor. So it's nothing to be afraid of. And while it's wet, you can remove it, you can take a Kleenex and brush it lightly and make it lighter, so they are easy to work with, honestly. So I put this watercolor up. Now, I love this watercolor. This watercolor is done on handmade paper, but and I love the looks of the very faint watercolor look. But just to put it up there to give you an idea of some of the way the enhanced ones have a little more of a glow to them. Okay, so this is the watercolor, or not the watercolor. I'm going to say that all the time, aren't I? Acrylic ink. The one thing I would say is try not to do too much at a time. So I'm just going to put a little dot. Start with a tiny dot there, and then I'm going to take my brush and I'm going to work it out. A little more for that part. And then down here, which is a bigger leaf on the iris, I'm going to do a little bit more. So that, I'm just going to fan it out again, just like you would watercolor. And I'm pretty happy with that just as it is. By the way, when I first started using the acrylic inks, I thought, well, I'm not going to use any of my good brushes on that, because a good brush is a good brush. You know, if you use a good brush, it's so much easier to paint. And so I thought, well, I'm going to try my good brushes. And I would say it's worthwhile to use a good brush. You have more control, and it rinses out right away with water. So not a problem at all. Now this part on here is a little bit wet yet, but I'm going to just, whoops, did I turn myself off? Do you think my battery went? Oh, no, I'm back on. Okay, because it could be battery. But I want to, yeah, sure. Is it off again? Technical difficulties, stand by. Could I hand this to you? You guys can pass this one around. I enhanced that watercolor, and that one was on canvas, by the way.
Pass this one around too.
Oh, yeah. Pass that one around too. That's been enhanced and it's on watercolor paper.
Here we go.
Oh, good. We're back in business. Thank you, David.
Yep.
So we're passing around a couple of examples. The houses, that really was fun to do, and I used a lot more of the acrylic ink on that one, but it was really kind of fun. I saw something similar on, always looking for ideas, but on Pinterest, this house that just almost glowed, and I was trying to watercolor it, and then I tried a little watercolor acrylic ink rather, and it seemed to bring it alive to me. So it's just, beauty's in the eyes of the beholder, let's put it that way. And I will pass this one around too. This is that iris. And the iris and then the delphinium that we passed around are both on canvas. So in order to watercolor on canvas, most of them come as canvas, and you can't possibly watercolor on a canvas that's not been treated. So if it's not pre-treated, you need to treat it with a watercolor ground, which it's a liquid, pasty substance that comes in a jar. And you need to give your canvases at least 2, maybe 3 coats of that ground in order to produce your paper-like surface so that you can watercolor on it. Another little thing about that, having done a fair number of canvas watercolors now, I will say one of the biggest things about them is that if somebody bought a picture of yours that was done on watercolor on canvas and they walked out and it was a rainstorm, they wouldn't have a painting by the time they got to the car. So that would not be good. But if you stand back and use a matte Krylon, be sure it's matte, because watercolor, you don't want it to have any gloss or shine because it would detract from your painting. But you just put it outside or in the garage and give it a good spray lightly and let it dry, and then do it again and even a third time. And it's not going to get shiny at all, but it will be definitely protected forever. It's sort of like putting a glass over a watercolor painting in a frame. So that's that part. Now I want to show you, can you see that picture? Yeah. Just another, this is just a very light watercolor of some cosmos. And I'll show you why sometimes I just feel like I want to enhance my watercolors a little more, and using the acrylic inks is just a fun way to do it. You could also enhance this with your watercolors by glazing, which is layer upon layer. And the first layer you do, if you love it, you've already glazed over and it's already enhanced to the depth that you want. But these acrylic inks are usually it takes less of a treatment. They don't have to be done over and over again. I'm going to take, the color here is a red-violet Light, it's called. And I'm going to go after that pink Cosmo. I'm going to put a little dot there, a little dot there, maybe a little dot there. So you don't want to go crazy with this stuff because you don't want to overdo it. You want to keep it with the watercolor effect that is so fresh and kind of a sweet look, and then working down towards the bottom. And I'm going to touch this hard edge right here with some water and just let it flow into the rest of the petal. Same with this one up here. Just let it kind of flow in. It works so very much like watercolors. Then I can actually pick up some of the pigment by dipping into another petal, so I'm not overdoing it. Because for one thing, cosmos are very light, airy, beautiful flowers that sometimes don't get very much attention, but they are a great watercolor subject. Give it just a little bit more, and bringing it out from the base of the petal, maybe a little bit out there. We have another. Okay, so again, like a watercolor, kind of acts like that. Then I'm going to switch to the purples. Okay, so that was the violet. Now I'm going to look for my purple. It's called Purple Lake. And it's a good idea to shake it up a little bit. And I'm going to do about the same thing with this purple one down here. He's kind of dark purple, so I'm not going to be too worried about getting a little bit more of this acrylic ink on that guy. However, I would say I might have more than I wanted to. No problem. I'm just going to take a Kleenex and let it dab away a little bit at this. Because you don't want to overdo it. Like I said, if it should dry, it's there forever. So not to get too excited or anything if it seems to be too dark or it's not doing what you want to do. Like this petal right here, I like to leave it a little bit of a highlight on the middle of that petal so it looks like it's more three-dimensional. Okay. A bit of water to let it get rid of any hard edges. When I'm all done with the flowers, I will put a little indigo in the centers again just to keep that center really dark. Okay. Now, see this dark purple up here? Lovely color. But there's this soft purple down here, so I'm going to use this for my source of paint. And just dip into my purple and bring it out. And water to soften the edges again. A little bit more water. So as you can see, if you've done any watercoloring, it will respond just like a watercolor paint. Okay, so there you have the purples. And then we're going to do just a little bit on the oranges. A little bit. when I do florals, I like to add a little bit of color into the stems that I'm working with, here and there, and into the leaves. Just kind of bring it in there. I just feel like it sort of blends the painting, or brings some continuity into the painting. I think we have crickets in our building. I love that song. I mean, I know it's not crickets, but you know. Just sucked up a little more of that orange. There they have that. I'm going to check to see if there's any of that purple that's still wet, and just put a little bit of that purple into the orange, because two things. Just to give it some interest, first of all, but also because purple and orange are complementary, and whenever you can put the purple and the orange close together, or even to blend them in a little bit, it's just a really nice effect, as would be blue and yellow, any complementary colors. And it's so easy to find those colors when you're doing a floral. Well, let's face it, they've got such beautiful colors in them naturally. So I'm going to put a little purple on this one too, and also it gives it a little bit of depth too. All right. Now, where's that indigo? And this is, you know, this is the scary part, because indigo is so dark, and I don't want to overdo it, but I want to give that center just a little more of a dark feeling to it. Here we go. Oh, it doesn't matter. All right. I think what I'll do is show you, this is the even scarier part, to give it a little spritz of water. Makes it kind of diffuse or run out into the other colors a little bit more, which isn't all bad. Of course, it could run amok here and there, but anyway, you can see where this painting, and I hope you can see it okay. I can't hold it up because it's still quite wet, but I'll set it aside and maybe it'll dry pretty soon. But the colors are brighter, more vivid, but there's still that transparent watercolor look to it. And I know that watercolorists really value that, so I'm not trying to mess up the watercolor scene here. Let's see. This one, this is a painting I've had for quite a while, and I figured, you know, maybe what I'll do with this watercolor is play with it with these, acrylic inks, and see if I can maybe put a little more life into it. Got the turquoise, that'll be good. I've got Prussian blue to give it some real dark areas. And then some quinacridone rose. So I'm going to start towards the middle where the darkest area seems to be, and just put tiny dots of the Prussian blue here and there. See if we can bring this one to life a little bit more. Oop, just a little too much Prussian blue. And these are hydrangeas, by the way. which are gonna start to bloom pretty soon. And there are some centers here that also have the, would be kind of fun to put the dark blue in. I'm gonna move around and just kind of outline some of these little hydrangea blossoms. See if I can't, just again, it's an enhanced technique. I could absolutely use watercolor to do this. It would do the same thing. So then you might say, well, why are you doing it with acrylic inks? I don't know, I just think, you know, it's something new to try and to just get comfortable with and see if you can just kind of do something with a little bit different medium and blend mediums. And I think so far they seem to be getting along. Nobody's fighting in here. So just see what happens. Now again, I think what I'll do, rinse my brush. You'd always want to rinse your brush as soon as possible with acrylic inks, because again, if you left any acrylic ink on your brush, it would be ruined because they dry like hard, fast. Okay. I'm going to give this a little spritz of water and let that blend a tiny bit. Then I'm going to move up to maybe a little more water. I'm going to move up to the tinier brush here for just a little bit. Right. I'm going to move up to, I think it's a quinquedone rose here. The color on this flower is called wild fuchsia, but I could not find a wild fuchsia in the acrylic ink, so I thought, well, as close as I can come to a nice, pretty floral type pink seemed to be this quinquedone rose, so that's why I'm using that color. Again, I'm just trying to go around some of these hydrangea petals. In and around. And I'll show you too how these work as far as watercolors do. I'm going to spritz this side a little bit and show you how, you know, sometimes you just want a little bit of continuation of color beyond what you're working with to let people's imaginations, you know, decide there might be some more flowers there, whatever. So a little bit of water and let it run. I find that the inks need to be teased a little bit more than watercolors. That's my personal finding. For whatever reason, just because they're inks, I suppose, they're bound to be a little different. With watercolor, if I had spritzed that right now and had put some watercolor, it would just be, you know, just diffusing all over the place, which I love that look. But anyway, let's check this out. Okay, I see that I have my same color. I see too that I have a little bit of it over here. And in a watercolor, again, you want to be able to repeat colors. You know, so make the painting maybe cohesive or whatever term it is, but just to kind of make it all kind of blend together. Not a bad thing. Even putting some little dots here and there. Let's see, there's one down here that I put. And I'm going to put a couple dots on the leaves. Just for good measure. Again, it's like when I added some colors on that last floral in the leaves. You'll find that putting the colors that are in your floral in the leaves and in the stems just add that glow to the whole thing. So highly recommend that. Bringing a little blue over here. Okay, now I think also for a painting like this, there's a lot of good greens in there. And I think putting a little more in is not a bad idea. I have a light green here called sap green. I'll just touch that up in here, in that area. Here. That's kind of a lighter green, and then do the same thing, just kind of let it blend in, warming up that leaf up there. And this one down here. Warm up a little bit. And then I'm going to find my darkest green. It's the sap green. Lake. Here it is. This is called deep olive green. So it was kind of a shock when I first used this green because I thought, oh, deep olive green, not going to be too dark, right? It's very dark, practically black. So I'm going to put some of that in there. Just outline the picture a little bit. Here and there. This is where I started, so I'm just going to come right down here and bring some of this dark green down here, just to give it a little more depth, a little more contrast. Water to soften these edges here and there. Very much like watercolor. And I was up here with a little bit. This is a nice big leaf up here. And water to soften the edges and bring it down into the leaf. I'm going to show you something with this. Can you guys see this leaf right here that I'm working on? Is that okay? Okay, because I want to kind of show you what I'm talking about when bringing the colors of the plant into it. I don't have this color, green, which is like a rich green gold. I don't have that in the inks, but there's a lot of yellow in the rich green gold. So what I'm going to do is just do a little drop of yellow in there. Drop down here too. See what happens. Oh, before I do that, I think I'm going to put just another color in. Let's see. I'm looking for my purple lake. And there is purple in this painting too, so I'll be adding a little of this to this area, but dropping that into that leaf too, just a little bit. I like to use, now I put the purple lake up here, which ordinarily I would put it down here because it's so dark and so contrasty. But I just went ahead and did it up there for some reason. Okay, and I'm going to give this leaf a little push of purple, blot a little bit up. But the purple's still there, even though I'm blotting it up a little. Blotting it up a little. All right. Just want a nice big definite leaf look up here. I think I'm going to add just a little more yellow up there too, because you need those contrasting lights to give it. The darks look more dramatic when you have lights in there. All right. This one, this little leaf right here could use a boost. So I'm dipping again into a wet puddle of purple to give that one just a little bit of a boost. And this one, so I see that I need a little more indigo, no, purple lake. Purple lake. Really a fun color. And where's that? Down here is that nice purple that I told you about. And put the color in this oil, I think. So I'm going to just put a little bit of that down in here. Let it kind of diffuse out again into the painting. Not every single blossom, petal, leaf, everything has to show up. Just a few here and there, really. There's a lot of them in here. It would be way too much and it would be way overworked if you just simply spent all your time doing every petal. So then I'm going to wet my brush, bring some of this purple, giving this leaf up here just a little more depth to it. Wetting it again, keeping it light. Now, where's the yellow? This dark leaf here looks so dark to me. I'm not wild about that. I think it needs to have some more lights in it, so I'm going to try the purple. I mean the yellow, of course the yellow. All right. Notice when I hit it and bring it in, I'm sort of blending it, and I really didn't want to blend it too much, so I'm going to try to just come close to it with a wet brush and see if I can't get it to just kind of stay light. Yeah, I like that better. Okay. I'm going to squirt the purple a little, make it blend. All right, and the greens, that dark green. I should really get more organized and put all my paints in the right order, so then I wouldn't be looking for the colors so much. But is that green I don't want? Russian blue. Whoops. Ink sure does get into your skin too. And it washes out, it just sometimes takes a little time. I think this is it. Okay. Trying to squeeze all of the green out of that one. Using it to sort of paint with a little bit. All right. Keep this green handy. And down in this area right here, I'd like to have some real good contrast because I have some nice whitish, purplish, blue flowers, hydrangea flowers in there. And I'm thinking I want to have a spot that's going to be nice and dark so that it just has that depth in it with the stems that you can see coming out. And I think this area too. Could use that. Maybe something over here. And stem over there. Okay, this area here is also kind of central, so just going to darken it up nicely just to let you see that this leaf stands out and some of the flowers stand out, and that the painting has a little more depth to it. Okay, now I just want a couple of dark centers. This is my indigo. Now, let's see. I'm taking a tiny little drop of some indigo here and there on some of the centers of these flowers, just to have them stand out a little bit more. Okay. Violet, a little bit of that over here, just to give it some, again, a little bit of glow, but also, again, I'm going to repeat that leaf trick. For me, maybe it's not a trick, but for me, it just, I don't know, since you make the leaves look a little more believable as a leaf, that they're not a perfect color of green. Use that out a little. Use that out a little. Anyway, I feel like it's coming to life a little more for me. It's, again, like I said, I do really appreciate and like the just a nice pale watercolor look. But every now and then, I might have a painting that I just like, wow, just not doing it. So I like to play with the acrylic inks. Blot that up, you can see that it kind of comes up again, so not everything's going to come up, that's for sure, but that's okay. You don't want it to be the perfect thing. I'm going to let this one dry also. You'll see that it's got a lot more. Now the other one I want to show you, just a little fun little project here. I've got this pumpkin picture, and the other day, of course, I'm going to do some yellows and oranges, but I also find, boy, I got ink all over myself. I also found a copper. I thought, you know, for fall, obviously we're nowhere near fall. Let's hope not too close to fall. But I'm going to put a little bit of more orange in this. This is all watercolor right now. and a little bit of blue in there. So I'm going to put just a little more orange, trying to enhance this orange color a little. Get some glow out of that. Let's see. Orange. And again, just bring it down into the painting. More. Just let it get nice and wet so it just kind of fades into the pumpkin segments. Get these going. A little more water. This one down. This one's going to be darker over here because it's kind of in the shadow. And again, I want to take some of this orange. I guess I have to get it right out of the bottle. Because like I said before, I really think it's important to get that orange color into the stems and into the leaves. Now, these I think I can spritz. That'll be just fine. Yeah. Okay, so I got a little orange. Now I need just a little bit of Prussian blue. Indigo would be way too dark for now, at this moment. Prussian blue. Aha, here it is. Okay, because we have this little blue pumpkin back in the corner here, and we're going to just enhance it a little bit. A little bit of blue and down into the shaded area, just a little darker. And a little water with it. And this is the shadow part. Probably a little darker than I was thinking, but what I'll do is blot a little and add water. And just add water like we do for camping food. Okay, that doesn't make sense. But, okay. Yeah, just a little bit of blue in there. Because it is, and I love blue pumpkins. It's just like, who would have thought there'd be blue pumpkins? I'm going to spritz that. Because they're hard lines, but some of them will be remaining hard, that's okay. But with the spritzing, it softens up some of the lines. But I kind of like that look in a pumpkin picture. I'm going to take some of this blue out of this pumpkin and dot the leaves a little bit. A little bit of blue on there. Spritz again. And then, perfectly fine to do a little bit of yellow in the highlights. A little bit of yellow. I don't know about you guys, but my favorite time of the year to paint is fall. For whatever reason. I guess it just feels like it's time to get some indoor activity going. And the colors, obviously, let's face it, the colors in the fall, how can we possibly beat that? All right. Now for the fun part. Okay, where's that copper? You can even see that it just looks metal, metallic. It's really cool. I'm going to put a little bit of this in. Maybe a dot in the leaf, a dot on the pumpkin, and how about some in a vine? And how about some in this vine up here? See how that goes. Brushing it in a little bit because I want it to show, so I don't want to, I suppose you could spritz this too, But I just want that little shine and that metallic look, I think, could be a good enhancer for a fall picture. Certainly wouldn't work, just most things, but just for fun. I'm also going to try to put a little bit of highlight in these berries. If I had a bright red, I probably would have made those berries a little redder. But, and then a little bit down on this leaf. How about a little bit there? Now, just for fun, I think I'm going to try to see what does happen if you spritz it. Why not? We need to demo here and just have some fun with it. Put a little dot on the leaf. Again, keep your brushes nice and clean, especially with acrylic. A watercolor would be forgiving and it would wash out. We all know that and stays nice and soft. Acrylic, not so much. Okay, I'm going to spritz that just to see what happens to the copper color. I really like it. I don't know. I just think it's really kind of fun, especially in the fall, to be able to use some fun metallic copper, warm copper. Gold would be good too. Okay, I'll do that. All right. So there's this one. I'll put it up here. So because it's still wet, I'll have to keep it flat for a while. But when I'm done, you guys can come and take a look. This one, I'm having difficulty with this. This was part of my demo, but I'm not sure if I like this one. This half of the watercolor on canvas has not been enhanced. This half I did enhance, only just the flowers. And I looked at it with a couple, I just tried to figure out if I like it or not. But you can see some of it, I really do like some of the petals in the flowers. That I used the purple lake and a little bit of quinacridone and orange in it, quinacridone and rose. And I kind of like it, but you have to kind of look at it close up. And I do think that once I were to finish with the enhance more of the blue, this is an antique blue, flow blue picture, that could be really fun. But I thought I'd just leave it so you could kind of compare. This is all watercolor, this is enhanced watercolor with the acrylic inks. There you have it, folks. All right. So, thank you. So go ahead and take a look at anything and any questions at all. I forgot to ask questions. Does anyone have any questions? Pardon? Absolutely. Ordinarily, and thank you for bringing that up, Jeannie. I take a little palette, any little like weld palette, and probably one of the more inexpensive ones to do the mixing, because it doesn't stay. Once acrylic dries, it's done for. But to put you could take the yellow and the orange or pink or whatever, and mix a little bit into the the two colors to get a little bit of a softer orange or whatever. You could mix. I do happen to have a turquoise that I did not use today, but you could mix blues and greens and get your own turquoise. Definitely you can do that. But the thing that I pulled out of my box here, it's a whole other lesson, but the acrylic inks are really fun to do a painting where everything is very granulated. So there's this fine little granules in it, but you need to add this, and it's called granulation medium. Who would have thought? But anyway, really fun to use. Really fun. You could put, so in that little well of color, you just put a couple drops of the granulation mixture and then paint on. You could use canvas, of course, but I think I would just stick to watercolor paper, because you're going to see your granules so much better, and you're going to see that, that softness that it can bring. And especially, Jeannie, with your type of painting that you do, I know it's very soft, and you would really have fun trying this. It would just be a fun thing to try. Anybody else?
Is the ink, is that different than like acrylic paint?
Is it the
Or is it
ink,
the same?
like the paint, like watercolor paint?
No, like acrylic paint versus acrylic paint. Is that the same?
Oh, I see. Yeah, it's a little different in that the acrylic paints, you know, if you've used acrylics, they're a little thicker. Exactly, a little thicker. And that's the big difference. But so you could not get that diffused watercolor look. I would say that these inks are kind of made for more of a watercolor look in a way, and depending on how you use them. But it's a good question. Mhm. Okay, well, thank you all for coming to the demo. All right. Feel free to look at the paintings up here. They're wet.